Welcome to another episode of VGN Weekly. Members of the Virtual Grip crew will recap the previous week's races and bring us one-on-one interviews with racers, league owners, and commentators, as well as others from within the sim racing community. Please like and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our broadcasts. If you are a league owner or potential sponsor and have a broadcasting need, please visit virtualgrip.net for info on how to get in touch with us. Thanks for tuning in today. Now let's go find some grip.
And welcome back to VGN Weekly. I am your host, John Heyn, and I'm joined with my co-host, Josh Buckley, this week. And Josh, this week, VGN Airways were filled with a lot of great action with a plethora of different tracks to kind of choose from. It started out with a 1 mile monster out there in Dover with the OBRL. We saw Greg McDaniel win that race, but if you are a racing fan, you need to go out and watch this broadcast. It was a great race, a lot of drama all the way through, but if you're time sensitive here, you want just 5 minutes of good watching, get to about 85 laps and watch the end of this race. It was an unbelievable. Shaggy, who is the lead on that, he almost hyperventilated during the white flag lap. I'm almost pretty certain of it. I was a little worried when we went to commercial break, but what a great race that was. A lot of lead changes, a lot of different strategy going on, a lot of timely cautions that just kind of kept you guessing on how everything turned out and how it was going to turn out. It was such a fun race to do. And then, Thursday night, we went to Slinger. And you know what? I've ran there twice, Josh, and it's a track not for the faint of heart, man. It is a true, honest-to-God bull ring. When people always talk about bull rings, it's like a bunch of fighter jets flying around in a cereal bowl. That literally is a cereal bowl that you're whipping around over there with with that banking and everything else. How did that go Thursday night?
That was a pretty fun race for some. I unfortunately had a short night, kind of my own fault, so it is what it is. But it was a lot of great racing. Only a few cautions, wasn't too terrible. And like you said, it is a bull ring, and it's just you're got to be on the wheel at all times. And it was a great race in the end. Chad Alcaraz was able to hold off Eric Stout to get his second win of the season. So some great racing there at Slinger. It was a lot of fun.
Man, that does sound a lot of fun. Slinger is such a fun track to drive. It's fun and it's frustrating at the same time, because you would think, because that's a wider track, honestly, but there's like no room for air. The margin for air on that track is, like that, which, is very unusual when you've got all this open space, because like in the corners, you feel like you're like forever and a day away from the wall and should have all kinds of room to operate and do whatever you need to do. But whatever the case might be, it's just not a forgiving track. But we followed that up, and then last night we ran at Oswego in the BRL, and that one went caution-free there at Oswego. Fun night all around. Chris Davis got the jump on the field and was able to hold on. A couple guys moved up through the field very nicely. You had James Lowe that started back in the pack, was able to work his way up. A couple other guys there, but like I said, at the end, it actually became a tire management thing, because there was a lot of guys that moved up. Even around lap 80, 85, they still had pace, but it was like about 85. It was incredible. It's like everybody's tires went at the same time. I mean, they just did. And it was kind of cool. Guys were pulling in. I saw the meatball flags, to indicate blown tires. I think at one time I pulled up the entry list and I saw like 3 or 4 meatball flags on there, and I was like, so entertaining race once again. And tire management, it always makes for an exciting end when tires are just kind of dissipating, and in another league that we see that in is OBRL. They get long green flag runs, and you know what, that's going to bring me into one of OBRL's own, Andy Thomas. How are you?
Oh, doing great, having a lot of fun.
Well, introduce yourself real quick.
Well, my name's Andy Thomas. I've been with OBRL for a couple of years now, probably 1.5 to 2 years. I'm just kind of a casual racer. I just kind of get into it because I like competitive sports, and I'm a little bit older now, and my body's starting to break down. I said, how can I stay in some kind of a competitive sport? So sim racing it is, and the online community was a little bit harsh, so I found OBRL, and they provide good, safe racing, and it's a lot of fun when you can run a lot of green flag laps.
Yeah, it really is. What is you've been there with a couple years now. What would you say is your favorite thing about OBRL? The number one reason you stick around?
Oh, it's the camaraderie and stuff. You know that when you're racing side by side with the guys, they're not going to run you up the track. They're not going to try to tip you or anything like that. It's just fun racing, and everyone will give you kudos. If you make the pass, they're like, hey, great job. And if you, like saying, if they'll, the same things, if you're too aggressive, they'll let you know about it too.
Absolutely. Did they also run, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday nights? Do you ever dabble in like the trucks or the Xfinity, or right now they're running the ARCA car on Monday?
I started off running all four. I had to give up one of them because it was just taking up too much time. Here on the East Coast, it's really late. So I gave up the Wednesday night one, but I still run the other three whenever I can, actually.
Nice. Do you have a favorite between the ARCA, the Xfinity then, and the Cup car?
Actually, kind of goes against the grain, but I enjoy the Cup car. I really do. The next gen and stuff like that, I just find that there's so many options in that car, the way it can be driven and stuff. It lets loose a little bit more than the other ones. The other ones, you can control it a bit more if it gets a little slippy on you. But for the overall racing itself, if you can get to that edge, it's a fun car to drive.
Well, it is definitely a more difficult car with all that power, and then getting that thing to kind of eat the track a little bit to keep you kind of situated, especially on corner entry in a lot of places. Man, that car is a handful, but it is fun to drive. I'll give you that. Well, we're doing conversations now, and with you being in OBRL, and I thought, hey, we could have a good conversation because Jack, we jack around, in short tracks over here between Josh and I, and so we don't do those longer races per se. I've kind of dabbled a little bit with the truck and the Xfinity there in OBRL a little bit, so learning curve. But the one thing that binds them all together are different race strategies. I feel like there's, even if you're, in BRL, when we run BRL, it's 100 laps, no tires, no fuel, but there's still strategy involved. Josh, your league, I believe you got where you can get tires and stuff like that, correct?
One extra set.
Yep, one extra set, so you've got strategy, and then OBRL with yours, you could get 2, 3, 4 sets in some places. So let me start the whole conversation. The first question I think is always when you're on the starting grid, when is it time to go? So everybody's always thinking, okay, you always think, okay, you get to this stop, get to this stop, get to this stop. But everybody's got it in their mind, when is it go time? So, when I'll start with you, Andy. When is go time in those big, long 120, 150, sometimes 200 lappers?
If my car is starting to get unpredictable, I'm starting to look at it. But I'm still holding out as long as I can, especially if other guys aren't going, because I don't want to go too soon either, because if I go too soon, it's going to happen on the other end. So I'm trying to hold on as long as I can until a few guys get in, because you never know, if you go in too soon as well, then someone has a slippery time going into the pits or something because they're on old tires. You get a caution thrown. You don't want to be that guy that went too soon either. Get down a lap.
Yeah, I know one up in the broadcast booth. I think I mentioned it, if not every other week, very least every other week, about getting into pit road. Could there be a caution during the cycle? Just because, just as you say, you're coming in, you've got worn tires, you're not used to having to, go from 170, 180 mile an hour down to 35, 40, 45, whatever it could be at a track. There's a skill set to getting on and off pit road, and I see it every week. Guys make up time on pit entry and pit exit. Getting into their box, getting out of the box. I mean, I've seen people make up a second, and that's huge on a racetrack. Josh, I'll kind of throw it over to you now, a little bit about, the strategy. What are some of the different strategies you think are applicable on the short tracks there?
On the short tracks, I'll just use it off the reference for a red light, where we have that extra set of tires. I will basically, normal race for us is 100 laps. I will try to gauge somewhere where I think is going to be best based off of practice with tire wear, everything like that. I notice a lot of guys like to use like the 50 lap mark. I like to try to have the fresher tires later, so I'll try to wait for 70, 75 laps. It depends on the track, obviously. But that way, if the fresher tires will gain an advantage, I would rather do that. Again, that's the strategy of it. It's the one I like to play. It seems to work for me. Every once in a blue moon, it kind of bites me in the rear, but lately it seems to be doing well. So that's the way I like to go with the short track stuff and having that one extra set of tires.
Yeah, BRL, you don't get any. You got your fuel, you got your tires, and and from a strategy, that go time, you have to have something under you at the end to go with. And 100 lap races, lap 1 through 20, lap 1 through 21, or lap 1 through 25 even. What you do during those laps, if you're in the corner and you're sliding the tires, the nose of the car corner, by gassing up too early and the nose is shoving across the track, or getting in too hard and having to put a lot of wheel in to turn it, you're killing your tires. And then lap 75 is where a lot of this stuff starts to show up. And all of a sudden you start driving like you got a parachute out the back. And you can watch guys. We saw it Saturday night in Oswego. A lot of guys had worked up well into the top 5, and then the tires gave out, and they ended up, somewhere around 10th. I mean, you saw it, and it was the tire fall off with these tire models are rapid and without warning most of the time. You'll be fine and dandy, give you lap 40 in a run, and then next thing you know, on lap 42, you turn the car and it doesn't turn. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm in a lot of trouble here, and you have to start backing up until you realize it almost feels like you're coming to a stop, turning the car and getting back on the gas. And, that's never a good place to be in on a racetrack. Andy, you've got also not only the tire wear, but you guys have fuel to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So here's and Zach and I always speculate in the broadcast booth about this, what goes first, the tires or the fuel? More times than not, it seems like it's the tires that are falling off before the fuel. So is there I hate to use the word trick, but it's not really a trick, but if you can make, 60 laps on a tank of fuel, your tires give out 40. I mean, are there things that you do when you're conscious of that you try to extend that tire wear to get closer to that lap 60?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you can cut a pit stop out, just go on fuel. Say it's a one-stop race on fuel, but you're right at the edge or whatever like that. But the tires are going to get sloppy at 40. You're running maybe a little lighter at the beginning of the race, so you can push to 60 and not be kind of a danger on the track, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you do that, though, you guys ever look at your lap times? Because I know that I've done this on the broadcast. Wow, you guys are going a second and a half slower than your qualifying speed or whatever. So there's a lot left. You're leaving a lot on the table by standing out there. How paranoid do you get behind if you think, okay, I'm going to try to run this long, and you see guys just whizzing around you, because you get out there, and if you're on old tires and somebody just came out of pit road, have their tires up, you feel like you're on a bicycle and they're still on the race car,
Oh yeah, there's a zooming by, right?
Yeah. So tell me the paranoia that sets in with that. I mean, do you ever get that, like, man, maybe I should be pitting, or should I stick to my plan?
Sure you do. You're wondering if you made the mistake, right? Am I on the right pit strategy? Are they the ones that are on the right pit strategy? And quite often you'll find at the end of the race, both guys are within a few seconds of each other anyway. So,
yeah. Unless you're Josh Robinson, that guy, I don't get how he does his tire. That guy keeps pace in tires. Having that X factor in the field is tough, because he seems to get more out of those tires than anybody else I've seen anywhere. Yeah. Josh, on your guys' standpoint too, you've got that tire. Are there times where you're like, yeah, I've got the extra set, but unless I have a wreck or slide them bad, I'm not touching them? How often are you guys running into that?
So I forget what track it was. I was trying to think about that. But there was a track that everyone was pitting in front of me, and I'm like, I don't think it's that bad. I'm like, I think I'm going to stay out, get the track position. I was really wrong. And thankfully we got a caution. I want to say it was Oswego. It could have been. And I think we put about 5 laps, and we got a caution right after that. And I'm like, there is no way I'm staying out on this. I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. I led a lap, cool, I got a point, but I mean, it was the worst decision. I wasn't able to, get back up through that. So definitely, every race car, all that stuff is gonna matter in that decision. But man, I made a poor decision on that one.
That surprises me because the tour mods, or not tour mods, but the SK mods don't. I don't want to say the fall off is great, but on those short tracks, if you're holding a steady line, passing is hard because you've almost got to be a half a second, if not faster, than the guy in front of you to be able to go up on the outside and just drive around him. And even getting side by side, if you can't utilize the whole track, even though you're under them, if you can't swing out to the wall. So that's surprising that you took that big of a hit. On used tires. Boy, I'm glad I heard that, because if I'm ever in a race now, I'm getting tires, I think.
Yeah, just be careful with it. My biggest concern is you got the guys, you're really holding them up. You can tell you're holding them up, and eventually they're going to use that chrome horn, and it's one of those, hopefully they can pull off the bump and get you out of the way without wrecking you. So, thankfully, like I said, only a few laps went by. We got another caution. I'm like, I'm getting out of here before I'm wrecked.
Yeah, either both you guys can answer this, I suppose. To me, this is like moving chess pieces on a chessboard with race strategies, and to me, it makes it really fun. And how often do you guys pay attention, to your competitors and what they're doing? I mean, is it a matter of, okay, I figured out, this is 150 lap race. If I split it 75 and 75, that's good to go. I mean, how does your competitors sometimes dictate your own race strategy? Andy, I'll go with you first.
It plays into it for sure. I try to run my own strategy regardless of what the other guys are doing anyway. If I can cut, I try to run long. And if I can cut a tire stop out, like a pit stop out of my race, I'll do it, because I'm not good at pits. I'll be the first to admit it. And I'm getting better at it. But I got paranoid when I first started the league and had to start getting long green flag runs. And when I was going into the pits on slippery tires, there's been a lot of times when I went in sideways, went bouncing off the walls, went scooting out across the grass. And let me tell you, I am a lot more paranoid going in there now than I used to be. And I lose a bit of time because of that. So when I go in, I'm a little bit more cautious. So if I can cut a pit out of my run, go, instead of doing 2 stops, do a 1 stop just by pushing the fuel a little bit more, and maybe I'm running on tires that aren't quite as good. But the lost time on that extra pit is made up by less lost time on the poor tires later in the race.
Josh, how about you? If you're sitting there third or fourth, and like you said, it might be early, what you feel is early, and guys in front of you pit, does that ever affect you or anything?
Sometimes it'll dictate, what the decision is. Most of the time I try to run my own race. Another thing I will say is judging by guys behind you too, that I do pay attention to a lot. If I see a guy on my relative that clearly caught me, was like a second behind, clearly caught me in like 5-10 laps, especially early in a race, I'm not going to bother with you. I'm going to let you go. Hopefully you burn your stuff up, and then I can catch you later in the race, because obviously later is when matters the most. So I'll pay attention to not only in front, but the guys around me in general, especially if they're coming from the back and you see they've caught you pretty quickly. What's the point in holding them up? They're going to burn their stuff up, obviously trying to race you, but at the same time you're burning your stuff up if you're trying to race him back. So it's let him go, let him burn him stuff up, passing other people, and then maybe the parachute comes out, towards the end, and I go waving as I go by. So that's the hope with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about, paying attention to the guys behind you too. That's kind of an underrated, I don't want to say skill, but awareness point. It goes back to that situational awareness point. Somebody has run you down, be aware of it, When you guys are in that situation, and Andy, you're a little different on those big, it could be 1.5 2-mile tracks where draft plays into it. Where that closing rate can get cut down, not because they're that much faster, it's because, well, they got a little bit of your draft, and next thing you know, they can pull right up to you rapidly. Are you able to dictate from the driver's seat, hey, I know that's help with the draft, or is it just, hey, knowledge of the track, the draft is effective here? Do you ever think about that stuff behind the wheel?
All the time. You're looking at draft and stuff like that, especially on a draft track. And you get your little groups that get working together. And sometimes if there's a little group coming up behind you, if you can get those guys to you quicker, and then it'll working together, you can catch up to the guys in front of you and stuff like that, right? So you try not, at that point in time, you're not racing each other, you're racing together.
Yeah. Having the draft is such a cool thing, and man, the new air model, I guess how the air interacts with the car that they dropped now about 5-6 weeks ago, has changed the game in those Nat Cup cars, man, because you can push guys around now. I mean, you can pack air on the spoiler of somebody's car and walk them up the track and get them loose.
Oh, yeah.
Or just spin them out, unintentionally, if you just get close enough somebody. Is that going to affect your race strategy and kind of, what your how you think strategically? Okay, look, I don't want this guy behind me because I get too loose with cars behind me. Are you finding that to be the case? Or, hey, I can sit right here, let them pull me, get a little bit of gas mileage? Has that stuff already come into play yet?
It has a little bit, not intentionally, I guess. I think most of the guys in our league don't try to pull each other around and stuff like that. We're more about trying to keep everyone safe on the track and stuff. And we're just starting to find out how the cars are reacting when they get in close proximity, side by side, on the tails and stuff like that. And there's been a lot of talk about it in the league in different races now, because it's kind of a new thing, right? And we're starting to figure it out. But the cars do get a lot more loose now when someone pulls up behind you, or if they're on the outside of you a little bit on the quarter panel and stuff like that. The cars are picking up and kind of pulling sideways a bit, which they never did before. So that's kind of new to us.
Yeah, I mean, I ran the trucks. The first one that I ran with that new package was Atlanta, where air is a big thing. No matter if you're on the straightaway, whether you're in the quad oval or you're in the corners, the air is doing stuff to your truck all the way around that track. And I mean, I'm still to this day just floored on how realistic, because it really felt like somebody put their hand on my left quarter panel and just pushed the truck around.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it was a really unique feel to it that, while I was bummed because that essentially got me crossed up and ended my night, but I was thrilled going, ooh, this is a new wrinkle that you're going to have to learn. And that was pretty cool. Let's talk about, the starting position and, affecting, how you're going to set up your race and, your goals. I know when I'm on the starting lineup, and I look where I'm at, and if I'm sitting 14th, 15th or back, I kind of develop a checklist in my head, okay, what do I need to do? Do I keep the tires on it, not be aggressive, let the race come to me? I mean, there's like a checklist, but then there's an end goal that I try to get. Okay, I'm looking here what's in front of me. Hopefully I can get around the top 5, or can I stay in the top 10? And sometimes if I look who's behind me, it could be, can I stay in the top 10? Tell me about when you're sitting on the grid and you kind of look where you're at. How often does that dictate how you race that night?
You're still trying to race your race, I guess, but there's certain guys are going to get in front of you within a certain number of laps in the race. It's just the way it is. They're good, and they're going to get in front of you. There's other guys that you're looking at and say, how quickly are they going to get up to you? Are you going to drop back because of your race strategy maybe involves saving tires earlier than they do or something like that? Some guys, it doesn't look like they're saving tires at all in the beginning, but at the end, they still got more than you do. They're just better drivers. So but there's a certain group of guys that are always going to be up front, and there's a certain group of drivers that are always going to be somewhere in the middle or towards the back. And they're two different bunches. For me, if I can a win is top 10. If I can get top 10, to me, that's my victory. Because when I'm looking at the other guys up there ahead of me, unless they really mess up their race, I'm probably not beating them. That's just the way it is. I have accepted that, and I have a lot of fun where I am. And there's a few other guys in the race in the same boat I am. And we have a lot of fun racing each other and stuff. And it doesn't matter where you start. You know where you're going to end up in an ideal race.
How about you, Josh? When you're on that grid and you're towards the back, you're like, okay, what's going through your mind at that point?
It's going to be depending on the track. Will make it different on how passable cars are, things are like that. Obviously, with the short track stuff, my goal is always to try to be in the top 10 as soon as I can. But I also don't want to be pushing my stuff. So I know there's a bunch of guys that have raced with me that can probably attest to this. It's like you'll see me try to sit around the 10th place early in the race, and I will just run my thing. And guys behind me like, why is he not going? Well, I don't need to go yet. As long as I'm within that top 10, I think that's where it's nice and comfortable to kind of just let the race play out. And then once things happen, then go for it. But, hopefully you've saved your stuff at that point. But my mentality is pretty much that at pretty much everywhere we go.
Yeah, and it's funny how, and it doesn't really matter what discipline, because I've done a lot of different. I've run any car on this thing. I've run dirt late models, and dirt in general is my forte. But I've done some of the NASCAR stuff on here, and no matter what the league or open set or anything, the racing from 10th on back is so much more fierce than usually even what's going on in the top 5 for a win. I don't know why that is. I don't know if everybody's got an equal sense of urgency, and I know this isn't going to be too politically correct to say this, but not everybody has a talent to be up in the top 5, so they're pushing, and then they could still be learning their craft, so that leads to a lot of mistakes. In fact, one of my favorite sayings I ever heard was, when you run in the back, it's basically racing with the squirrels, and every now and again somebody's going to get their nuts cracked. That's really,
that's yep.
That's Jack Hewitt. Give him full credit for that one, but it's racing in the back is so much more different, and that's why I was asking about starting in the back, and for me, when I'm on the grid and if I know I'm in the back. Like last night, because of how the qualifying shakes down for BRL, it goes on the previous week, and then they invert. And, if you're not the top, I think it's like 13th, I think now, you're stuck back there. So I started almost shotgun on the field in a SK race last night. And I know when I'm on that grid, my first thought is survival. Okay, can I survive the first 10 or 15 laps when everybody's going to be trying to get what they get because everybody's packed up? My thought process, okay, let's get going and then let's race. That's usually my thought process when I'm on there, Now, restarts and all that, we'll talk about that here in a minute. Completely different because then you're trying to move forward. But that initial start, at least for me, it's let's get sorted out and then let's go race. And that's usually what I do. So we have 3 different drivers here and then 3 different ways to approach. And the cool thing is not one of them is the wrong way. Not one of them is the right way. It's just interesting to hear the different points of view. And now think about what's fascinating to me is you line up with 10 or 15 other guys. So how many other points of view are on that starting lineup, on that grid, that are going to have different agendas when everybody barrels down into turn 1 on lap 1? And that always creates the hair on the back of your moment. That's why I'm always, can we survive? Because, okay, there's going to be some guys that are going to want to back that corner up and stay on the bottom. There's guys that are going to want to attack the corner. There's guys that are going to want to get up on top and just hold her open, drive around the outside. You see all these different things on the restart or on start of the race. That's just fascinating. Josh, you and I did this, we did this kind of the silent secret where you and I worked the booth together. And that's why on lap 1, I think I just shut up and let the cars get through 1 and 2 so everybody can hear the sounds, see what's going on before I even open my mouth. Because to me, those first 2 corners on the start and even restarts are some of the most exciting points of the race. And, Ryan or Lowell, whoever's our camera people, it's crazy because they could point that camera on literally everybody in the car and get something interesting on those starts. So
you never know where people are going to be when where you're going to put that car, where this guy's going to go, I like to use the phrase hornet's nest for the back. But it's just, you never know. So you're exactly right. Those restarts or the initial start of the race, just sit back and witness what's going on and then start talking about it because you don't know what you're getting into until you're there. So
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I don't. If you guys do this, all right, you get the one to go, you're lined up, and I'm sure you guys get a strategy based on like who's in front of you. Okay, I think I could probably, we're on the inside here. I could probably gain a spot because the outside line's not to go. But how many times have you guys on starts or even restarts work the plan out what you're going to do for those first 2 or 3 laps, and then it completely go away because everybody does something you can't predict? You guys had that happen?
I'm going to use this to reference. By the way, thanks Rob for this. At Thompson, running fourth, you want to be on the outside at Thompson. We got to restart, 3 to go. I'm right in prime real estate where I want to be. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to send it into turn 1. I'm going to make sure I'm to the outside, and I'm just going to keep it up there. The plan is to get to, I believe it was Eric that was in the lead, get to his rear bumper and see where it goes from there. Unfortunately, I didn't even make turn 1. The car under me, thanks Rob, decided he was going to drift up just a little bit and hooked me. So that did not come to fruition at all. I went from playing it exactly what I wanted and exactly how I wanted it to be, fourth place on the final restart at Thompson, to race over. So.
Yeah, and Andy, you're on those big, wide NASCAR tracks. So, once you go by the start-finish line, it's game on. But there's like maybe 4 lanes to choose from barreling down into turn 1 on some of those tracks, all of which are viable. Tell me about that. Yeah, tell me about that from the driver's standpoint. Like we'll go to Pocono. We went to Pocono a few weeks ago. Pocono, you can go 6 wide, down towards turn 1. You better get it situated before you get down to turn 1. But down that long straightaway, game on.
Yeah.
Tell me what that's like, from your standpoint, and your plans and going up in smoke and that kind of stuff.
Well, it's nerve-wracking because you've got a line planned out in your head of where you're going to go, and all of a sudden 1 or 2 cars pulls out beside you, and it's like, whoops, there goes my line. Now where's my new brake point so I can make it around the outside, or where do I have to brake to make it around a tight inside, right? Depending on where you are on the track at the time and stuff. So everything kind of like on cold tires, especially on a start, I'm on cold tires. How's it going to react to this new situation, right? So everyone's a little bit more tentative or whatever like that. And then you got other guys around. The guy in front of you, is he going to back his up a little bit more than what we had planned? Or is the guy behind you not going to back it up as much as what you do? So all that kind of stuff plays into your thought of how this is going to handle.
That is an incredible point. And that's where knowing your competitors and who they are and their tendencies comes in huge, because you have somebody, like you said, that dives down, but if they like to overdrive corners, they're stuffing it in there, and then that, okay, they're on the bottom, which means they're going to have a bad angle when they get up to this corner, which means they're probably going to lose the nose and come up and tag you. Because on dirt, a lot of times that can happen too, because dirt, if you're down on the inside going down the front stretch, you just can't pitch the car and not walk it up the track, and the same thing for asphalt racing, especially with the modifieds, Josh, is if you get too far down on the inside, when you get to that turn, you better brake early and lift early, or you don't have a hope in hell of making that corner. No matter it doesn't even matter how much you slow. If you're on that inside line and you use that same braking point as the guy that has a preferred line, you're not going to make it. I can't think of a track that you're going to make it at.
Yeah, no way with that. You got to be, essentially if you're diving it in there, you got to have a later breaking point and hope when you drift up that you have him clear. And if you don't have him clear, I hope your brake pedal works pretty good, because you want to slow that thing down before you take you both out.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that you mentioned that, Andy, because that really is important, because how you go into a corner, I mean, think of when you qualify. There's a certain line that you take to maximize your speed through the corner. You arc it out and bring it in, for a lot of tracks. But on those starts and restarts, you're not going to get to swing out and then back in. And recognizing where you're at, like you said, the guy dove to my inside, but that guy on the inside has a responsibility too, to realize, okay, I'm coming up with a really bad angle. I probably can't stuff it in here. And when you've been on the inside in that, Andy, when you recognize that, I mean, what is your thought? Is that do you play chicken with the guy on the outside to see how far you see if they get them to back out, or do you just kind of focus within your car and say, okay, I can push this to that point and then I've got to back out? How do you handle that?
It's a little bit of both, actually. You do push it a little bit to see.
Yeah.
Hopefully he does back out of it, but you can only push it so far to where you put yourself both in peril. So you can't go that far either. So you've got to make it safe for both of you, and you have to make that decision on the approach, because in our league especially, it's all about the safety more than it is about making that pass. It really is.
Yep. It is, and that's. I can't believe that. I just, was playing chicken. But, I mean, I suppose that's really what you do when you head down in the corner. You're inside, and you can't drive it in as deep as the guy on the outside. So it's either you got to bluff it or you get out of it. And there's a lot of different scenarios that you bluff things on the track, too. Show a headlight here to think that you're going to the outside, but then jump to the outside. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that. How are your bluffing skills, Josh?
My favorite one to do is fake that I'm pitting. I think I've gotten a few people doing that. You think I'm completely coming. I got all 4 tires down, ready to go. In the last second, yoink, I go to the right, and everyone's like, whoa. And I like to use that just for one, it's a little bit of fun, but 2, it's also see if I can get someone to really think I'm coming down for tires early. And then now, all right, I can remember these guys came and actually took tires instead of trying to remember who did this or what. So I part of it's a little fun, but yeah, the faking people to pit is the one I like to do the most.
All right. I've got to ask, how many times has that bit you in the butt where they've come back out and then smoked you on the new tires and you're like, oops?
It happens, part of it, but it goes back to my strategy that I like to play. It's like, all right, well, you might be fine now, but when I get tires in 15 laps and you're on the, chewing these ones up, then who's going to have the last lap? So.
Yeah, that's I'm glad you mentioned that, Andy. That is such a cool topic to talk about. Worrying about what guys are coming in behind you and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the other part of the race and strategy wise is always, we kind of touched on a little bit with the restarts and stuff like that. But how about a late race restart? Okay, everybody I think any driver will admit there's a point of no return where everybody, you got give and take through X amount of part of the race. Whether it be lap 85 out of 100, 15 to go, whether it be 10 to go. Everybody's kind of got their own magic number in their head where it's, I'm not giving anymore. It becomes take. So you're in that zone where it's okay, it's all take. Let's just say you're going to get a green flag, 5, 6, 7 laps to go. How does your guys' mindset change on those late race deals, Andy? How big of a difference is it?
You are more aggressive. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of that comes down to what's your tire situation. Am I agreeing doing that late start on old tires, or am I doing it on new tires? I know for me, I'm not as good as some of the top guys. They can run on 40-lap old tires the same as I can run on 10-lap tires.
Yeah.
But when I'm starting...
I was going to say, make it all things equal. Either everybody pitted or everybody stayed out. Everybody's on the same stuff, 6 laps to go. You're definitely more aggressive, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely you are. But like I say, the older your tires get, the better drivers stand out more. So you have to be careful with that. If I'm on new tires against some of the better drivers and I'm up front and I'm fighting for a position, I can probably hold my own pretty good on those new tires. So that factors into play. If I'm on 20-lap old tires or 30-lap old tires and I'm restarting against those same guys, I'm probably more cautious than they are. They're going to be probably more aggressive than I am because they're better on those tires than I am. And I recognize that. Right? But new tires, that's the great equalizer. If you're on new tires and there's only a few laps to go, oh, hell's breaking loose. We're going.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened at Dover last week. And that's what at the top of the show when I said everybody needs to go, watch the last 15 laps of that race. I mean, you saw it. The intensity went up. Mm-hmm. Nobody was given anymore. And it produced spectacular finish. I think there's probably a little more contact and not just the admins, but some of the drivers. I saw some of the chat afterwards. There was a lot of, guys, your league is fantastic. Guys just don't like wrecking other guys, whether it be an accident or a purpose. Guys in that league just don't like contact, which is a great thing to strive for, and that's what makes it so. So I'm not saying that in a negative way. But, the last 15 laps of that race last week were – I mean, I would put that up against any kind of real-world race, anything, that finish of that race. So, but Josh, short track – completely different too, because at least on the NASCAR stuff, we've talked about it, you've got options. A lot of times on those restarts, you can fan out 3 wide, go play a game of chicken, come back to it in the corner. You can even run 2 and then some tracks 3 wide over there. Short track's different. Short track, if you're stuck on the outside, you better get to the inside rapidly on most tracks. So I'm going to ask you this as a 2-part question. Late race restart, 7-8 laps to go, and you're stuck on the outside. How aggressive are you forcing your way back down?
I got 2 words. Send it. That is literally when you get like the last 10 laps, if there's a late race restart, you just send it. You hope it sticks, especially if you need to get down. Like, there's nothing you can do. The best we just did this a few weeks ago where I just pinched the guy in the bottom. I believe it was Rob, again, ironically. But I just pinched him to the bottom as tight as I could. I'm like, he knows the same thing. We're going to race each other hard, but we're going to reach each other as cleanly as we can. And it was just, I pinned him to the bottom. I was able to edge him on the exit of the corner. Knowing you're coming to that, stay to his outside. If you can get the run coming to the start-finish line, hopefully just get your nose, and that's just one extra spot. But again, when you get that late in a race, it's just send it mode. I really don't think any other way. Bottom, top, it's just it'll change exactly what you do if you're on the outside and the preferred line is the inside. But I mean, you just got to send it at that point, because if you don't, you get freight trained, and that's the end of it. So.
Yeah, I mean, and you've kind of got to be aggressive getting down, and you got to understand too, some guys are going to do the same. So I mean, you can't get frustrated if you do the same thing a race or 2 before. That's kind of one of those things that kind of drives me a little nuts too, because guys that will do things, but then when they get them done to them, they lose their mind. Those guys, I'm telling you, just get under my nerves like no other. If it's good for you to do it, it's good to have it done to you. So, but bringing that into the question here, because sometimes, I don't want to say, and OBRL is a little different. I don't want to say contact, but there's techniques, like you said, pinching somebody down and not giving them the space to go up. So that means they've got the wheel cranked as they come out of the corner. That means as you're gaining speed, they're still scrubbing it, which gives you an advantage down the straightaway. One of the time and true, the short track people love this term, but the bump and run, iRacing, it's a little different. I mean, you got to hit the guy square. If you're going to hit them and do it, all honesty, you've got to do it when they're wheel straight, because chances are if they've got any input in that wheel and you hit them, they're wrecking. You've got to be able to do it line the bumpers up and hit them square. If you can't do it, you shouldn't be hitting them in the dead center of the corner when they've got all the wheel in, because you're going to wreck them. So on the racing etiquette side, and you guys, have 2 different rule books here, and, what is that? Where is that line between aggressive and you shouldn't do that? So Andy, I'll start with you. And then for you, for your own personal code, I'm not saying nobody is right here in this question, nobody's wrong, but for your own personal, where's your line at?
Our line, and mine's the OBRL line, because that's where I race.
Yep.
It's no contact. You do not bump and run. There is none of that allowed in ours at all. You don't run the guy into the wall. You don't bump him to knock him loose or anything. That is totally frowned upon in our league. If you bump a guy and cause him to get loose and then get by him, that's a penalty in our league.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying you guys got a little different rule books than even some other leagues. You guys are probably the most stringent, which I'll argue you guys have a great product, and that those stringent rules are the reason you got a great product.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for every league. Some leagues have great product and have more lax rules. It comes down to the drivers on the track and that shared, okay, these are the rules, and everybody gets on board with them. That's why that works. Short track racing, is a different animal. Number one, I'll say that. So Josh, how about you? Where is the line to where, okay, either A, I had it coming, or B, okay, this is as far as I'll push it. Where's the line from you between acceptable and, okay, that's not cool?
I mean, bumping is short track racing. You're gonna door. You're gonna knock fenders. It's part of it. It's just the attitude in which drivers do it. I'm a big believer of the bump and run move if it can be done cleanly.
Yep.
And it's just as you say. It's a lot. Getting the bumper in the middle of a corner when you got wheel turned into it, just like you said, you're most likely turning the guy. So if you're going to make that move, it's generally a perfect example where you might see me do something like this is Stafford. If you get a run coming off of a corner and you are literally pushing him into the next turn, you will just not hit the brake a little later to just shoot him up the track a little bit, give him that extra speed he wasn't anticipating, and if he can't drag his brake enough, he drifts up and you just get under him. Some people can, do that better than others. That just comes with the skill base of every driver. So if you don't know what you're doing or you're not comfortable with it, obviously we'll say, maybe don't do it until you're a little more comfortable with it. Because the last thing you want is either wrecking the both of you or wrecking that guy. Because obviously then, people are going to look at you different and be like, all right, why did that guy just go and do that? Like, mistakes happen. It is part of it.
Yes.
Big thing in our league we have, it's like, we are going to make mistakes. It's just, if you messed up, you either key up or shoot the guy a message after the race and be like, look, I apologize. I didn't mean to do it like that, or didn't mean for that to happen, and just move on. But it's going to be part of it. So in the back of your mind, as much as you might give someone a tap, you got to expect it from other guys too, because especially when you get late into a race, as with short track racing, sometimes it's hard to pass, and sometimes you need to try to give them a little bumper to get them out of the way.
Yeah, and the most common, and I'll even go as far as saying this is a mistake, the most common mistake I see is, towards the end of the race or on a restart, people kind of get desperate to make passes because that's your best chance to gain spaces a lot of spots on those, starts and restarts. So the one common mistake that, I see is guys will get more aggressive on corner entry, which gets them in trouble in the center of the corner, either washing up into the car to their outside and things like that. Pinching a guy down is a strategy. I know personally, I've even employed, if I got someone to my outside, I'll take a late entry in to take, them cutting down. And I've rubbed some people the wrong way because I'll take a slightly later entry so they can't turn in. And next thing you know, they're up a little bit higher than they wanted to. Maybe they catch the marbles and then I'm gone. But if you're going to employ those strategies, iRacing, because of how they hit boxes, and this is the one thing I hope somewhere is a technology, and for those that you don't know kind of the hit boxes, they're not shaped to the contour of the cars. When I say boxes, they're usually boxes. That's why you see net code and you get the predictive code where you see two cars that don't touch, but one jumps like they just got tagged. That's what happens. The boxes around the cars, especially the modifieds, aren't to the contours of the car, like the front bumper and all that kind of stuff. It goes straight up. Late models on the dirt and stuff like that. We've got the noses that go down and things like that. The boxes still go straight up. So if you get your nose under somebody, you're still going to turn them because that hip box is going straight up. Modified is really much like that too, because if you look at the contours of the modifieds, those wide tires stick out farther than the side bars. So if you get up behind somebody just right, that tire to bar contact, and that's where a lot of netcode comes into on the modifieds.
That actually happened to me at Slinger with Bruce. Just we were racing great, and it was just I was like I got spun, and I'm like, there's no way he was that close. And you go back and look at it, on the VGN replay, they showed it clear as day. There was plenty of room between the two of us, but it just acted like he hooked me, and I'm like, we weren't that close.
Well, now this is where I did that whole spiel to kind of explain that. But here's the question that I have at the end of it. If you know that that's a thing, like especially in the modifieds, I don't see it so much. I see it here and now on the NASCAR side of things, but is it a driver's responsibility then to know those hit boxes? So know that, hey, I can't put my tire in that spot. I can't get up there because I know I'm going to turn them? That is a great debate because I don't know the right answer to that. I don't even know if there is an answer to that. So what is your view, Josh,
honestly,
on that?
I don't think there really is a right answer to that, just because
There's
it's also,
not.
I mean, especially with short track racing, everything's happening so fast. So, I mean,
Yep.
it's very simple. Even with, the larger tracks, sometimes you make mistakes. Like I was thinking, did I maybe pinch Bruce just a little too much? Wasn't really sure until I went back and looked at it. And then that's when it was clear as day that, there was the net code. But I don't know that there is a right or wrong answer to that. Just, yeah, you could know your hitbox, but again, then you
My
make a
question
mistake.
is, though, should you know it? Because I've served, and here's why I ask this, because I've served on IRT, committees, and heck, even over with another league that I was in, C2C, I actually ran their review committee. And I've looked at through the years so many accidents where the hit boxes come and play, but they were going to turn them no matter what. And then they get the pass because, oh, that was net code. But I've also seen some occasions where drivers know those hit boxes and they use it to their advantage to knock their opponents out of the way. I've seen it. I've seen it on more than one occasion where, hey, I know if I put my bar here or my tire here on that towards that bar, bye-bye. And they know they can get away with it because there's never contact. So that's why that's more the question is, should that be an element that should be looked at, and should drivers be aware? As like I said, I'll take your thoughts, Andy, real quick.
That's kind of a huge, one of those
Yeah.
unknowns a bit. Guys will tendency, and myself included, will tend to race as close as we can. We're not thinking in the fact on the race at the time. You're not thinking about, is my bumper sticking out there a little bit more than what I can see? No, you don't. Right? So you're just thinking, have I got clearance from what I can see and what I can tell, right? And then all of a sudden, the car takes off. It's like because you got hit. And part of that's predictive code too, which is what the net code is, right? Maybe you wouldn't have actually, the hitbox wouldn't have even made contact, but you've made the correction. But in iRacing, they say, no, it predicted that you were going to be where you weren't.
Yeah, because, last night in the modified SK race there at Oswego, a couple of cars in front of me got tagged and they went up in the wall and they bounced back. Even though they never made contact with me, it was close enough where it actually knocked my right front tire off. Mm-hmm. No, and it was like, frustrating. And of course, when you're wrecking, I'm not saying all these, we were running too close, but when you've got people in VR, because VR will allow you to run inches apart a whole lot easier than if you're on a single screen. But, like I said, I always find that an interesting, subject because, like I said, I've seen guys that literally know that and will get up and put their tire on your bars to move you. And, is that fair? Should those be, looked at as a league or anything like that? I always find that conversation fascinating because I could probably ask 15 guys and get 15 different answers on it. I know from my point of view, I'm like you, Andy. I'm not thinking in the heat of a moment, oh, that tire at that spot is going to nail him. But as soon as it happens, I usually know, I probably got too close there. And that's usually, at least for me personally, that's, about where it is. But, yeah, like I said, that's always part of strategy. You can get up and then you can move people that way too if you want to. So kind of, to me, that's a red line. If you're doing that intentionally, I don't think that's kosher. But, and I guess, the last thing I'd like to talk about is from a strategy standpoint, and this is always a fun one too, is you guys both qualify, right?
Yeah.
So qualifying, is there a strategy? BRL does the invert. Friday night we qualify on dirt, but we have a very unique qualifying. We have a 4-lap Indy style average, so you can't just go out there and bust a lap. You got to go out there and run 4 laps, and your lap average is your qualifying time. And if you touch a wall or get a 0x, it wipes out your whole time you're in the back. It's interesting and it's fun. But for you guys, is there a certain strategy you guys have for qualifying? Like maybe, hey, save the tires and putt down the backstretch and gas it up over in 3 and 4. I mean, is there little things in qualifying? Andy, I'll go with you first, that you find on that front in qualifying that's easier?
I'm just not good at qualifying. If you ever watch any of the races, you always see me. I'm one of the last qualifiers.
Yeah, me too. Well, and you mentioned that though, because I've heard guys talk about if you sit in pit lane for like a minute and let like engine temperatures come up, there's an advantage there. I'm not good enough to go out there because I've tried that and I still suck qualifying. So it's like, whatever. I'm just going out there and busting a lap because it's not going to matter, all these other tricks. But I've heard that. So, I mean, for Josh, for you, like in the modifieds there on for red light, is there something you can do, a little something, anything to do, like drag the brake on coming on your out lap to get heat in the brakes? I mean, are there things that you can do?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's really no proof, and I know there's been everybody that tell you that scrubbing tires doesn't do anything to help. I always believed that wasn't the case, and then I started working with some guys and watching what they were doing, and I'm scratching my head going, I thought that didn't work, and they just kind of chuckled and like, try it. And it's literally swerving back and forth, jabbing the brake, getting the heat in the brake pedal, all that stuff. Since I started doing that stuff, I seem to be better with qualifying, unless I completely mess it up, which happened last week. I really messed that up. But I do believe, especially for the modified stuff that we do, that it does help. And if you are not doing it, I would recommend to at least start trying and seeing if there is a difference.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the jabbing the brakes, I don't know how many times that has served me well, getting heat in the brakes on the initial start of races or even restarts. I'll just drag around and have my brake, just engaged a little bit just to get the heat under the caution and all that kind of stuff. And going into turn 1, I've seen that pay off. The other thing that I've seen, maybe not so much on qualifying, but restarts, is dropping, either clutching the car and clearing out the motor, just like you see, revving that motor like you see guys do in real life and all that, because that'll clean that excess fuel out. So when you go to launch, it improves. I'm here to tell you, I think it works in the sim stuff, because I'll clutch it. Any car, even the dirt late model where you can't clutch it, I'll knock it out of gear, rev it down the backstretch, get it back into gear as quick as I can. In the launch, I mean, and I could be wrong. I could be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I get it. It could all be in my head. It could be that whole punch drunk thing. And I'll say it. But I personally think it works to clear the motor out.
I'm going to have to try that. We're going to have to check back on that.
Yeah, because my theory is, number one, they scan everything in there. So, I mean, it's all, but I'm telling you, I think the car picks up better. And it doesn't matter. I've done it in the Cup cars. I've done it in Xfinity. I've done it in SKs. Like I said, dirt late models, sprint cars. There is not a car in the service that I haven't tried that on where I thought it made a difference. I've had times where I forgot to do it. Green flag will come out and the car is sluggish off the line, and I notice it, and it's like, oh, I forgot to do that. Next time we get a caution, I'll do it, and the car, it launches. I mean, it's subtle, but I'll tell you, like I said, I could be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. God knows I've been told that over and over and over and over again, especially being married with 3 children. I get told that several times a day. So
I know the feeling. I got 4.
Yeah, so, I always subscribe to the theory that I'm right and y'all are wrong, so that gets me through my days. So, well, with that said, that was a very interesting conversation, so I do thank you guys, for being on, especially you, Andy, for coming on the show with us, for Josh and I. And, the last thing here that I think I do want to cover before we go is a preview of things coming up here this week. Tonight, the OBRL, granted this is going to come out on Tuesday, so this will be a little dated, but we're going to be in Indianapolis this week. And what's your thoughts on looking at Indy?
That's an interesting track. Those 4 corners are very tough at Indy and stuff. They can get really squirrely. We ran that a week ago in the Xfinity, and it was interesting to say the least, especially with the new tire model and stuff. And those marbles get on the outsides and stuff like that. Man, you get offline on the outside on those turns, it can get squirrely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because one of the piece of racecraft that's going to come into the most are people that can time their passes, because setting up the passes and how you gain momentum out of each one of those corners, that's going to make or break you with those long straightaways, because you can, draft, suck up on them, slingshot around on those straightaways. So I can't wait to see that. But by the time this airs, um, we're going to be looking at Iowa. So for us to preview one step ahead here a little bit, so when people are watching this on Tuesday, Iowa is coming up here. So two vastly different tracks. So what are your thoughts also on Iowa?
Iowa with the news, I think that just had a new scan. So that there has completely changed. With that new pavement, especially down low on that track, you have to run the low line there now. You can't get away running the high line. I mean, you can for a while for speed. It's got the speed on the outside, but you'll tear your tires all to pieces out there.
Oh, wow. That's going to be fun to watch. It's one of those super speedway bull rings. It's just a fast track, but it's small. Close quarters racing. But yeah, the new scan is pretty cool. The big Hy-Vee hospitality tents and all that around there. So really, they did a nice job on that rescan. Josh, Thursday. Now we're now back in real time. You have what I think is must-see TV Thursday. Tell me where you guys are going. It's going to be cool.
No, it's definitely different. We are going to take the Tour Modified, one of the few times that we take them out during the season, to Watkins Glen. We are going to turn right as well as left, which means kind of chaos, especially the start. Everyone knows that initial start, that big right-hander. Another part of chaos, that air cleaner. You can't see through it, and it makes it difficult to see cars next to you.
Or turning points, too.
Yep, exactly. So
I didn't even think about that.
It's going to be a lot of different adjustments. I know myself, ride height adjustment in the car, just to get as high up in the car as I can to try to see over that air cleaner the best of my ability. It's going to be chaotic, but it's we were there last season. It was a lot of fun. I'm just looking to hopefully have a little more speed.
I was just about to ask you, as your first time, but so now since it's not, I've got to ask. I mean, you said it's a lot of fun. From a challenging standpoint, are you guys running the boot, or are you running the NASCAR layout?
We're running the NASCAR layout.
Will there be, what will the pit strategy look like, since we just had a whole conversation about strategy? Is that one where you guys are going to have to take fuel and tires, or is that one you can run the whole thing if you need to?
I believe we're going to have to make one stop. So I'm pretty sure everyone's going to take tires at some point. It'll just be a matter of running it until the tank's dry, or understanding. I haven't really done a lot of practice to know exactly how many laps you get on the tank yet. So you're going to see differing strategies for sure. Some people are going to try to take advantage of the tire wear if there is a big difference in tire wear, but it'll also be in the Tour Modified, more horsepower. So if you really, wore the rear tires trying to take off early in a race, you got that shot of extra tires to, hopefully fix that towards the end. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be chaotic for sure.
So once again, Thursday night right here on VGN. So like and subscribe so you get alerted when this comes out. Make plans. Gather the TV around if you got a smart TV and watch this race, because I cannot wait to see it. I got iRacing, so I might even sneak in there and watch it as a spectator, just so I can watch what and have the broadcast on in the background. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll wrap up our week on Saturday with the BRL. And Josh, you're going to be on the call with Soup, your initial time in the booth. So before we talk about the race, your only experience in the booth has been with, well, myself on the lead, which is, that already is like a strike against you, because that's a challenge you overcame, I'm proud to say. So what are your thoughts going into calling your first race out there for the masses, I guess?
Nervous is definitely a word. Just getting used to, obviously past couple of weeks being able to, do some coverage with you will definitely help. But it's just, Soup's a great commentator, a great, broadcaster. He's been doing it for a long time, and I got nothing but respect for him. So when I got, asked to join him, I was like, that's going to be a lot of fun. So I am looking forward to it. The nerves are definitely going to be out there, but there's no better way than just get to it.
Yeah, I've worked with Soup on and off now for probably a couple of years, and you know, he can be a little kooky behind the mic, so you got to stay on your toes, which is fun, and that's a compliment to him. Um, but I have learned so much from him. I mean, even take last night. I'm not going to say it was a boring race because it wasn't a boring, but it was a caution-free race. And Soup has an uncanny ability to. I think Soup could make watching paint dry entertaining. I guess that's what I would say.
Absolutely.
And that's a pretty cool thing. And that's about the biggest compliment I think I can pay the guy, to be honest with you. But Saturday night, right here on VGN, they're going to be the late models, the tour cars, the pro late model for the asphalt stuff. Those cars are going to be going to Myrtle Beach. And, that track is a fun track because it's not a traditional oval track. You've got a dog leg down the front stretch. You got a very narrow back stretch. And I guess for giggles, they decided to put turtles on the inside of the corners, especially over there in 1 and 2, that, you hit those in any short track car, you're either going to wreck or damage your car pretty good.
Yep.
So I think that tracks, but it always produces really good racing because weather conditions, if they're right, you get second grooves on both ends of the track there. You can get really good passing opportunities with that dog leg on the front stretch. So I do think that I think you're going to get an outstanding race there that night. That's a track that I do think, like I said, traditionally you have some good passing, some good racing throughout the field there. You just have to mind those turtles because I've yet to see a car win over those turtles. So
that was going to be my question to you, is be like, with the late model, when you go and you hit that turtle, does the nose just launch? Like I've done it in the modifieds, and sometimes you get away with it, and sometimes you don't. But I've never done it in the late model. So
I'll tell you, I've turned myself over hitting those in a modified. So
I've been lucky then.
Yeah, well, it was quite a few years ago that I did it, and I'm kind of thinking that there might have been something. I don't know what happened there, but it literally got me up on 2 tires and over I went. It was just crazy. But when you hit those turtles in a late model, you feel it in your steering wheel. And Oswego, you've raced at Oswego. You know that bump in turn 4?
Oh yeah.
That you hit it, and it's like all of a sudden it takes both your front tires off the track, and even though you got your wheel like this, the car's going straight to the wall. Mm-hmm. You hit those bumps, it's a lot of the same thing. If you hit them and you got a lot of wheels still in the car, because theoretically you should be straightening the car out to get it pointed where those bumps come into play. But if you still have a lot of wheel, like if somebody's on your outside and you're still trying to fight off of them and you hit those, you're going around. So, yeah, it's just as treacherous for those late models as it is the SKs. So, and it's always fun, like I said, to watch those races. It's fun to be on the track during those races. And, if I'm thinking I might even be in the field that night. So just because I like that track, I have a love-hate relationship with that track. So we'll find out at the end of the night if I'm still in love with it or if I'm going to hate it until the next time. So, but guys, once again, fun broadcast here, guys, and can't wait to watch this here when it launches. And I do think Andy, you coming in and joining Josh and I for our new endeavor here.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And with that, you know what? We're going to sign off for this week. So I hope everything goes good for everybody this coming week, and we hope to see you again right here next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of VGN Weekly. Join us next time for race recaps, interviews, and much, much more. Please like and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our broadcasts. If you are a league owner or potential sponsor and have a broadcasting need, please visit virtualgrip.net for info on how to get in touch with us. This has been a production of the Virtual Grip Network and the Skidder Creek Motorsports Group.